Welcome to this Tamiya FM-1 Wildcat build, except it's actually a Royal Navy Martlet. We've got a few things going on here, so it's a really interesting build and it's a really gorgeous kit. So do hang around and we'll get into it. This is one of those kits that I had never done before. It's definitely a scheme I didn't even know much about, so being a bit of a coward, I followed the Tamiya instructions almost to the letter. As I say, this is an FM-1 in the US, but these were exported to Britain, and that meant that they had a different scheme entirely because they were actually painted in the US. If they were adjusted, it was in the field, so this is definitely a non-standard scheme. If you're used to BS standard Spitfires and Royal Navy markings, you're not going to get that here, and that's what makes it really interesting. The other thing that we're going to go into is how to handle the Japanese, or in this case Tamiya decals, because there's a little bit of a secret there which is really worthwhile hanging around for. Okay, the build itself, it's pretty straightforward. It's a really nice kit. This is from, I think, the 1990s, and then they remastered it, I think redid the wings and so on. So the detail in this is superb. The fit, I'd say 9 out of 10. And already I'm just following the Tamiya instructions as said. And this was slightly different because mixing this green and blue for the cockpit, I'm not really used to that. So that was a new one. However, I did like the colour that much that I actually kept it and mixed it into a green bottle that was getting low. You can see here the detail in the cockpit. For what it is, a relatively inexpensive kit, I think say $50 in Australia. There's not much to complain about at all. The cockpit, very nice. I'm using my standard silver there. As I say, the detail here is really good. If you're patient, you'll get really nice results. The decals for the instruments, I don't mind at all. I think it just becomes a question of a little bit of patience and taking your time. The colors, I'm really just using Tamiya 99% of the time. In this case, I discovered a new color I like, NATO black. One thing I have been really putting a bit of effort into is practicing my figures. That was one of those weak spots that I had always ignored a bit. So I did take a bit more time, and I'd say generally in recent builds I've been taking a bit more care with these, especially when it's a really nicely molded figure, as you can see here. In this case, again, Tamiya instructions, I was a little bit skeptical using that bright blue, but when you use it with the flat base, it really come up nicely. And I'm doing this over Mr. Surfacer 1500, just a really basic white coat. I'm definitely not in the figure painting, what would I say, expert category, but one thing I did notice is doing it this way, and I had to do a couple of coats, I do think I got a much better result. I was far happier with this. It's probably the best figure I've ever done. So that's the sort of, I guess, level and learning that you can progress with. So there's the actual instrument panels going in. Like I say, I cannot fault any of this. There was a little bit of, I'd say, a minuscule fit issue on the fuselage, but I'm not even sure if that was me or Tamiya. Mr. Mark Softener, I'm going to talk about that a lot later on as we get to the decal side of it, so definitely pay attention. The other thing, while I'm ranting a little bit, do like and subscribe. It makes a big difference. So at this point, the cockpit's coming together. The detail I'm really, really impressed with. I decided these days that I'm putting that extra care, as mentioned, into the actual pilot figures, because what I tend to do in the past, almost leave it as an afterthought and then rush him through at the end, and didn't always look that good, I got to admit. However, in this case, I'm really quite pleased with how it's all come together. The fit here, 9.5 out of 10, if there's such a thing. Just as a little tip, on these ones, if you can get away with it and you can glue, say, from the inside, definitely worth doing it. Not a big deal, but it can save you a bit of headache. On the port side wing joint, I did have a little bit of a bump, but again, nothing to worry about as such, which is why I don't really mention it too much. You can see that on these Wildcats, if you've never done one before, the assembly's a little bit different. And definitely this is a good starter Wildcat if you haven't done one, because the undercarriage can be a bit strange if you're not used to it. You can see there's a few pipes and rods and whatever they're called, framework, I suppose, that goes in there. In this kit, it's actually really well done. To me, you don't get the super detail of, say, other brands, but you get something that, if you follow Tamiya instructions, generally you'll get something that you can show off to the family and friends and all of that. As I say, fit, no dramas at all. And I think it's one of those ones where probably one of the more satisfying builds I've built over the last few years. As mentioned, I think just combining it with a different scheme. I had a look through my stash and I realised I've got a crazy amount of P51s and Spitfires. So I've got to do something with them. So to actually come across something that was just that little bit different, and like I said, it really did have me just a bit cautious. It's not often that I've done something where I'm really almost in the dark. And if I did have one complaint, it's just that the Tamiya instructions are black and white, and I was relying on the box art a bit and a few photos that I did have a look at online. So there's that FM-1 undercarriage. Like I say, if you've never done one, it can be a little bit intimidating at first, but they're pretty straightforward. These are really a early 1930s undercarriage. So that reflects in the engineering. The engine itself, again, I can't complain at all. For what it is, are you getting super detailed? No, but in this case, I basically followed Tamiya instructions again, and the only difference was when I come back with the dark grey, I used it really quite dilute and then dabbed off the excess, so it almost becomes a wash, and then I dry brushed with silver. So you can see here, again, follow the instructions and you'll get something really, really nice. Back to my new favourite, the NATO Black, to do the internal side of the engine, and it all goes together very, very nicely. The nice thing also about these Wildcats is you can keep the undercarriage separate to the last minute, and that does make the painting and everything really a lot simpler. It was a nice design, as weird as that sounds. I kind of like the way they've done the white struts with the blue come through hand brush. I don't always feel that urge that I've got to airbrush everything, especially if it's a few drops of paint. It can often just be a bit of a hassle. And because the moulding is so well done, it actually makes hand brushing these tyres really pretty painless, I'd say. I didn't need to worry about masking it or anything like that. I think, again, just take your time. If you've got a nice hard edge on the rim, it just makes it that much easier. You don't feel like you're fighting anything. So that's the undercarriage coming together at this point. Not a lot to them, really. I think there's maybe 6 pieces here. In other kits, you will get a lot more. The one thing I would say is I use water-based latex because then I can dilute it, dab it on, and I'll use that in cases like this where it's just a small part, and sometimes on the edging. Another complaint for Tamiya, if there is one, is can someone at Tamiya start using proper cutting machine? It would just make life so much easier on the masks that you give. Just one of those really, really, really big pet peeves. So at this point, you can see I've got a nice plane. There's a really nice pilot all coming together, and I've got it all masked. I'm just coming back over with that cockpit green, the Tamiya recommended one, which is a little bit darker than I think the normal BS standard one. And this is where it starts getting interesting. I discovered rattle cans, which I've used in the past, but once I got my airbrush, I tended to move away. However, this was a good one to really use as an experiment, purely because I wasn't actually that sure if I had the right colours. So that was why I was relying heavily on the Tamiya instructions themselves. And like I say, there wasn't a lot to go on with this build. So even at this point, I'm like, what's going on here? I'm using German colours. And then in this case, I did one of those crazy things. I don't have a lot of video of the green, and I'll put the paints in the description, but what happened is I used blue tack, or whatever you call it, wherever you are, and I masked everything, except I masked it the wrong way, and then I had to start again, and it was getting late. This is where it gets interesting. It's almost like you've got these German-ish colours on the dorsal surface. On the underside, you're back to basically normal Spitfire colours, what I'd call Spitfire colours anyway. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Interestingly, the greys that these were shipped with were often things like US Navy grey, and the best colour matches they could get in the factory in the US. At this point, I'm just coming back and doing a little bit of touch-up if there was a bit of overspray here and there. I'm really relying quite heavily on the box. That sounds bizarre, but This is, as I say, not something I was hugely familiar with. It's a pretty wacky scheme, to be honest, but I do think it looks really cool. And like I was saying, it's just one of those ones where historically, yeah, they were shipped painted with the best colour match they could get out of the USA and then adjusted or repainted in the field. This is just standard stuff at this point. Canopy, cleaning it up, pulling off the masking. I used the Tamiya masking. This is about as textbook a Tamiya build as you could get. But having said that, I'm really happy with it. And I did learn a few things, I have to say. So hat tip to whoever at Tamiya. Now, here we're into the actual decals. And these are big slabs. I normally would have painted these, but it was going to be complex because there's a few gaps and things like that that you can see in getting everything lined up. One thing here to keep in mind, and I hear this a lot, is that the Tamiya decals are thick. Yes, they are, but there's one thing that everyone, well, I shouldn't say everyone, but there's almost a secret ingredient that everyone knows in Japan, but not so widely known around the rest of the world or the outside modelling community. I know that there's, say, go-tos like Microsol and so on. I have them and I use them. But with these Japanese decals, really important point is that Microsol and let's say the Western-based decal softeners are not actually the same as the ones used in Japan. The ones used in Japan are actually much, much stronger. So Mr. Softener is a plasticizer, whereas Microsol, as an example, it's just generally, I think, a weak acid, acetic acid or something, basically dilute vinegar, and that's not to take anything away from anyone. What you will notice is if you use, say, something like Mr. Softener on cartograph, you have to be very careful because it really does dissolve them. So I think if you're a regular and you've watched my builds before, you'll notice I don't get into rubbing decals down and all of that. So that's actually the reason why. What I'm really looking for is just to get the decal positioned. Then I'll let it dry. And then, like in this build, I'll come back over days. I think this was 3 or 4 days, and really slap this Mr. Softener on. So that's really dissolving at this point the decal into, well, I shouldn't say into the plastic, but it really does dissolve it. And then I'll just work on that, maybe it could be over days, especially on a big build like this. What I'm doing here is there's always a couple little bubbles and things. So I'll just prick them with the end of my knife. A pin would probably be smarter. And then I'll start another, lathering it up with Mr. Softener, let it sit. And I'll do that, like I say, over a few days. That's the latex coming off. I use the toothpick to do that because obviously I don't want to be scratching things. I'm really emphasizing here what I'm doing. I'm coming through each day. This is sat on the bench. I'll notice a couple more bubbles like you can see there, and then I'll just slap more Mr. Softener on. By the end of that process, it is a bit tedious. Those thick decals of Tamiya or whoever that people do complain about, that's actually the reason why essentially the Japanese decal softeners are dissolving the plastic. So you can see the results there. At this point, I think I'd be really struggling to get as good a finish if I had hand painted that. One other thing that I'd say is if you're stressing out about the invasion stripes, don't, because they were often slapped on. A lot of them were painted on just in the last few hours before they took off. They were really flying with wet paint on June 6th in a lot of cases. And the reason for that is kind of straightforward in that they had to keep it secret. So I think a lot of it was really just slapped on as they were taking off. I've even heard stories of painting it on with brooms. So there you go. This is a really, really nice build. I'm just detailing up at this point. I've used proper rigging and just a bit of touch up here and there. I would buy this kit again, strongly recommend it. Do keep in mind that slight difference with the Japanese approach to decals compared to, say, the Western approach. They are a bit different. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that. Love to hear your comments, questions, and like and subscribe. Thanks again. Always like to hear from you all. See you in the next one. Bye for now.